was considered to be a special incarnation of Krishna, who was tasked, he is considered to be the incarnation of Krishna's administrative potency. So we know that anyone here studying management science, anyone planning here to become a manager one day or something? So we know that management is very difficult. It's very difficult to manage anything. Managing people. So we see that Krishna has all opulences, and one of his opulences is he is the supreme manager, the supreme administrator, who knows how to properly organize people. And it's said that Maharaj Prithu, he was that embodiment of God's ability to properly organize the world in the form of a great king. And what we're looking at tonight is a very interesting discussion that King Prithu had with a meeting that he had with the four Kumaras, the four great sages. Specifically, you see here that Sanat Kumar, the leader of these sages, spoke to this king. And it's an interesting discussion, and if you ever read the Bhagavatam, you'll see that so much of the Bhagavatam is these discussions, different personalities that meet one another. And a lot of the philosophy and the teachings, so it happens by someone speaking to someone. And a lot of these discussions, when we first read the Bhagavatam, we might just read it through, but then with time, if you sit down a little bit and you look at these discussions, and you really think about what is being discussed here, the points that are being made, it is very deep, and there's a lot of food for thought, as one might say. And in this discussion, you see this king, he is asking a very important question, an extremely important question to the great sage. And he asks the question to the sage about how can people in this world, us, how can we obtain good fortune? How can we obtain good fortune means happiness, success. How can we become successful in this world? So it is interesting that King Prithu asked this question because naturally, as a king, he is concerned with the welfare of his citizens, welfare of the people in his country. How can you judge the success of the king? Well, you have to judge it by the happiness of the people. How do you know if someone is a good manager? Well, you don't just look at the manager, you look at the team he's managing. How is their performance? How can you say, if you say this person is a very good manager, but all these people are miserable and they're not performing very well, then that doesn't really mean much. So whenever we take responsibility for other people, we will see the success of our efforts in the people that we are ultimately serving. That's how you see the success of leadership. And you see so much is being made nowadays of what they call servant leadership. But they understand that really the key insight is oftentimes missing in proper leadership management, is understanding that even though you are the leader, and in one sense you have some authority over the people, you make decisions that people have to listen to. But you are ultimately the servant of these people. And your success is dependent on these people. If your team does not perform, then you will get into trouble. So in one sense, you are dependent on them, even though they are in one sense dependent on you. So King Prithu comes, if we are familiar with his story, he came after a time of very bad governance, extremely bad governance. His father was a horrible king, a great abuser of power and a great oppressor, caused so much havoc in society because of not properly fulfilling the obligations of what a leader should. And we see that, I was recently reading the Mahabharata, at the end there's a section where Krishna speaks, King Yudhishthira, and he makes this interesting point. He says that some people ask, is it the yuga that makes the bad leadership? Or is it the leadership that makes the yuga? So we're all familiar with Kali Yuga, is it not? So Kali Yuga, the age in which we are living now, in which things are unfortunately a little bit mismanaged. And it will most likely just get worse. And Bhishma there makes the point, and he says, the answer to this question, it is the leader that determines the yuga. Meaning that whenever bad effects we will see in society, it will come ultimately from bad leadership. From bad leadership that misdirect people do not properly direct people, do not properly protect people, and then as a result, society becomes unbearable for everyone. And the inverse of that is also true. That even though we might live in a time in which things are not so easy, if there can be good leadership, in whatever realm we have, we at least decide to, in our sphere of influence, lead with integrity and lead according to the principles of the Bhagavatam, then you can create some peace and prosperity in your sphere. Just like even if it is winter, if you have a greenhouse, you can still grow mangoes or papayas. Even though outside the climate might be very cold, but if you have a greenhouse, you can at least in that area, you can change the climate and you can make it favorable. You can make it like the summer, even though outside it is winter. So similarly, it is by good leadership that we as individuals and as society have some hope. And therefore, he then comes after this period of very bad leadership. And he is then naturally very much concerned with what can he do? What is his job as a king? Towards his duty towards the citizens, and also naturally his duty towards Krishna. Now, leadership is not a very easy thing, because in good leadership, you have to balance out very opposing things. So in one sense, the government or leadership, they have to punish, and on the other hand, they also have to be merciful. And you will see for all of us, you might not think that, or you might not be interested in a career in the government, but all of us will have some dependence at some point. If you have children, it's the same principle. You are the king, and your children, you are now dependent on you. And you will have the same dilemma that the government has, which is, when should I punish, and when should I be merciful? And if you punish at the wrong time, you will create chaos. And if you're also too lenient or too merciful for the wrong thing, then also you can create chaos, is it not? So we see that the government, they have to tax people, they have to have taxation. And taxation is very different than selling something or buying something, because taxes, you can't say no. And if you don't give the government money, then they'll take it. So taxation is very dangerous. So the government has to tax. Otherwise, nothing can get done. But it has to be very careful, because if it taxes too much, so it becomes, if they're not controlled, then they can also easily exploit people extremely. And we see that in the history of society, when there was oftentimes a revolution on all kinds of various stages, it is usually preceded by heavy taxation. That at some point people just can't bear it. They tax so heavily. So many governments in history we can see. So the problem of government is, and the problem of any kind of leadership, is that you have to be extremely self-controlled. Even as a parent, you have to be so self-controlled. Because your child can sometimes make you go crazy. But then you have to be controlled. You cannot just become so angry and frustrated, become too aggressive. And at the same time, you have to also be careful to guide your child. You can't just let them run loose and just do whatever they want. So that is the difficulty in this world, is that whenever we have dependence, we have to ourselves be very self-controlled. We have to have some integrity. Otherwise, we will not be able to make those difficult decisions properly. And things will get out of balance. Whether it's in your own life, with your family, or on a large scale with the government, or one day if you're working as a manager of a company, you're going to have the same dilemma. The dilemma of balancing out these extreme things. And for that, you need to have some integrity, some self-control. And that only comes when we take shelter of dharma. So we see that without dharma, it is inevitable that leadership will become exploitative. It's just a question of time. It's just how it works. And that's what we will see in society. As dharma goes down, it becomes more and more difficult to have people in positions of power who use it responsibly. And they do not get carried away, either to the left or to the right. Making decisions is also sometimes very passionate, especially when there's a lot of stress. stress, does it not? For those who work in high-stress industries, that is a large point of what you get paid for, is to be able to handle the pressure, to not crack under the pressure, to be able to make calm decisions even though around you there's so much storm, so much pressure, and so much risk. Is it not? The more you get paid, the higher the stakes are. If you have a job in which your decisions don't really make such a big difference, then you're also not going to get paid so much. But if you have a job where your decision can determine whether the company will lose millions of dollars or win millions of dollars, then you're also going to get paid a little more. So ultimately, you'll pay for the pressure. Can you handle the pressure? So, but how can you handle that pressure if you're not even able to control yourself? If you haven't had some mastery of yourself, it can only come by the careful cultivation of karma. Otherwise, that pressure will not be handled. Then, in order to deal with that pressure, you have to take shelter of sinful activity to be able to balance it out, which is what many people do. And then we see people get into a lot of trouble when the truth comes out. It is wrong. So, therefore, we see that King Krishna was very much concerned with good governance. And his first question to these sages was, and I will read it to you. I'm going to read a few verses. So this conversation stretches over many verses, so I'm going to only read about 3 or 4 of them tonight to get the gist of the conversation. This is text number 13. Kakachina Bhushala Manta, Indriya Tarinam, Yasana Tasmin, Patitanam Swakamali. Victor Maharaj inquired from the sages about persons entangled in this dangerous material existence because of their previous actions. Could such persons, whose only aim is sense gratification, be blessed with any good fortune? That is the question. How can people be blessed with good fortune? The main qualification then for leadership, and again, leadership means any capacity, whether you're a parent, a manager, or the king of the country, or the king of the world, or the king of the universe one day. The principles are the same. And the first qualification is that you have to be a well-wisher of whoever is dependent on you. There is nothing worse in life than to be dependent on someone who is not concerned about your welfare. Have you ever been in a position like that? Who has ever had a boss that you know for a fact that this boss does not actually want you to succeed or be happy? Anyone ever had a boss like that? How does that feel? It's not pleasurable. It's one of the most scariest things you can have. Because now your happiness, such a big part of your happiness, is in the hands of a person who is not your friend. A person who is not wanting you to be happy. It is very uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable position to be in. And on the converse, who has ever had a boss where they knew that this person is interested in my success? Ever had a boss like that? Most people, I guess, are self-employed because I haven't had one of them. Which is, I guess, the best. Because then you can only blame yourself for having success. Or for your failure. So, being a well-wisher is also not very easy. You might tell yourself now that yes, I want other people to be happy. And maybe you do, for most people. But the closer you get to another person, the more difficult it is it not? Because other people, they can be annoying, they can be irritating, they can sometimes not do their job properly, they can sometimes be forgetful, they can make mistakes, they can do so many things. And then you have to stay the well-wisher of this person. Now that's very difficult. It's very easy if I show you a picture of someone in Fiji and I say, do you want this person to be happy? And you say, yes, I want everyone to be happy. That person, I wish they can also be happy. But then if I show you the person who sits in the cubicle next to you in your office, who is like, always doing things that you hate, and I say, do you want this person to be happy? And then you say, yes, but maybe they should be happy somewhere else. Maybe not in my life. So that is how we get purified, by the people close to us. Does it not? That is the challenge in life. The closer we get to people, the more comes. And it's just not some abstract thing, it's this person. Do you want this person to be happy? Are you the well-wisher of this person? And that requires full integrity. And again, we come back to the same difficulty. Have you mastered yourself? Are you able to act with integrity? Are you able to stay the well-wisher of people, even though there might be some other part of you that do not like them? It's not so easy. It's not so easy. And that's why we see in the workforce, in a good company, sometimes an important part of a good company is good culture. Where at least, even if you do not like someone, you can just tell them that. There's some culture in good companies where at least you try to keep these things at bay. Now, culture can help a little bit, keep things a little peaceful, but at the end, it is the condition of the heart that will come out at some point. If the heart is filled with poison, that poison will come out at some point or another. So, Peter's question was then this. We can see he was deeply concerned with the welfare of his people, with the people that are now dependent upon them. But what is the difficulty with these people? The difficulty with these people is that avape tasmin patitanam sokarmavi, that these people have fallen into this material energy, and now they are entangled in the web of karma. And who is that? That is all of us. And what does it mean to be entangled in karma? It means that we are conditioned. What does conditioning mean? It means that we are all bound to certain kinds of behaviors, some ways that we are forced to act, even if we do not want to do it. And that's what it means to be a conditioned soul. It means that sometimes we're going to do things that we do not even want to do. If you become angry at someone and you say bad things to them, the next day you might feel horrible and you try to tell them, I didn't really want to say that. But it's too late. You did it. Why? Because you are conditioned. Because anger or lust or greed or envy or madness, they can grab us at any moment. And then they can make us do things that we don't want to do. But we're still going to have to pay the price for those actions. And we see it. And sometimes our conditioning, they can lead us into, sometimes we have singular disastrous events. Who saw that big thing on the internet that happened at the Coldplay concert? Isn't it? Everyone saw that? Big disaster. Very embarrassing. God, that was a very embarrassing thing to see. And you can see when the camera shifted on them, they all know this is it now. It's the end. One wrong decision. Obviously, it wasn't that day. I'm sure it wasn't their first date. I'm sure that's not something that's been going on for a while. But why would they do that? Both people married. The lady had said she was married to the Cabot family from Boston, one of the richest families in the United States, the most richest, oldest, most powerful families in the United States. What do you think will happen to her now? I don't know. But it's not going to be good, I can tell you that. So how many people have ruined their lives with one bad decision? They can, in general, be good people, but to get involved in certain situations, that can ruin your life very easily. You think it might not happen to me, but I can tell you one thing. When they were buying their tickets to the Coldplay concert, they were also thinking, they weren't thinking what's going to happen to them. They were thinking, I'm going to have a great time at the Coldplay concert. And next thing you know, their life is practically ruined. He had to step down from his position, both probably going to get divorced, and who knows what's going to happen. So that is the reality of conditioned life. Now, most of us might not have such a dramatic experience. I wish for no one here that might happen like that. But we have our own versions of drama, because we get into trouble. We get into trouble, and why is that? Because ultimately, we cannot control ourselves. A lot of issues are like that. Some issues happens to you. Sometimes, whatever. Some idiot drunk driver drives into you, and then you have a big drama on what to do. So those things we cannot avoid. But many times we ourselves are the cause of our own problem. Because we do things that we know we shouldn't. We cannot help ourselves. So being a conditioned soul is very dangerous. It's dangerous to be conditioned. You have to be careful with what you do. And ultimately you have careful of yourself. To see that you can sometimes be your own worst enemy. So, Krishna Maharaj is thinking, yes, I'll take responsibility for these people. And why is that scary? Because it said that if you are a king, you take 1/6 of the karma of all people that are under your control. Now that is scary. So we thought that, well, I want to be the president of India or president of America. Let's think about that. If you become the president of India, how many people in India? Over 1 billion. That's a lot of karma. 1/6 of that. And you all know better than I do. Not everything that happens in India is all wonderful and good, is it not? Because you're responsible for everyone. So, very scary thing to take that amount of responsibility for people. And difficult, ultimately, for people who are conditioned. It is difficult for us to act in our own welfare. It's difficult for us to get good fortune. Because, unfortunately, a part of us, and not the whole part, but a part of us, a part of our conditioning, is not, if we take shelter of that and we let it go, it's not going to bring us auspiciousness. It will bring us difficulty. And bring a lot of pain to not just ourselves, but also the people around us. And that is the reality. So think about the kids of those people on TV. That is very important. Think about the spouses of those people. Everybody now, the whole world knows what's happening in your lives. It's very embarrassing. So when we do wrong decisions, it can cause a lot of hurt to not just ourselves, but other people as well. So therefore, to be conditioned is serious business. It's not a joke. So, why is it so dangerous? In this conversation, I said I'm just going to read a few verses here. The Sanat Kumar then goes into it and explains what is this danger? The danger with when the mind becomes absorbed in material activity and mundane activity. It is said, Indriya Vishaya Krishna Akshiptam Yayatam Mana Chaitanam Bharate Kode Stambastvayam Dinavadat. When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. And when this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost. So the image that is being painted here is just like if you have a pond, and if there's too much reeds that are growing around the pond, those reeds that will suck up all the water. At some point that pond will become empty. It will look dry. And you have in South Africa, we have these trees, eucalyptus trees, that are originally from Australia. Some of them came there, and those trees, they can suck rivers dry. They can absorb so much water that whatever is there, they suck it dry. So the image is there that there are certain, if the mind becomes ultimately obsessed, and this is what we have to understand. Addictions and obsessions, these are the reality for us. We all have it. We all have our addictions and our obsessions, our things that the mind goes into and it grabs on. And those addictions and obsessions, they can ultimately suck dry your consciousness, your intelligence. And what happens then is that your memory does not work anymore. So what happens is that so much of life depends on properly thinking and remembering what will be the result if I do this. And we see that with addictions, for example, say if you have, let's take an innocent addiction. So you have addiction to chocolate ice cream. And it's a problem for you. You have a problem with chocolate ice cream. I saw you for a moment. You resonate what I'm saying. So the thing is, what happens if you eat a whole tub of ice cream? It's inevitable. You'll get a stomachache. And one day you do it, and then you feel that stomachache, you say, oof, I'm not going to do this again. But what is the problem? is that you forget. We forget. And it's just maybe you remember for 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week, a month later, you've completely forgotten everything. It doesn't, you see that chocolate ice cream, you don't even remember how it felt last time. So remembrance is very shaky. It's a very shaky thing. Your memory can easily become bewildered by your addictions and your obsessions. They take your mind and they pull it. And when it pulls it, what happens is that you cannot remember anymore. And that's why certain things like anger and lust, they can make people do things that you cannot understand how they can do that. I once saw a clip of a rickshaw driver in somewhere in Hyderabad. Saw the news, I don't know how, I don't remember, somehow I read it and I was like, that is crazy. And this guy, he found out that his wife was cheating on him with another rickshaw driver. Somehow she likes the rickshaw drivers. So, and then what he did is, he got so angry, he took an axe and he killed that other man in the street. In broad daylight, he took his rickshaw, he took his axe, he drove there and he killed him in front of hundreds of people. So you ask yourself, what was that man thinking? Was it really worth it? It doesn't matter, because anger made him completely blind. And he couldn't think, he couldn't stop and remember what is going to be the consequences of my actions. So that is the problem with this world. And if you look at social media, a lot of modern marketing, it all depends on this principle. Is that if they want to catch you at a point where your memory fails, and if you will show people stuff repeatedly again and again and again, and every time you have to say, no, I don't need this. No, I don't need this. But every time, if they just give it to you enough, at some point they'll catch you. When your intelligence isn't strong, you may be tired, or you see too many different things, you've been scrolling too long, and the next thing you know, it happens. So, that is just the world we live in, where if you're not careful, you will stay constantly stimulated. You will not have a moment's peace to think about what you actually want to do with your life and with your time. You will just work, and then you will consume. And you will just be constantly plugged into some device that is just algorithmically going to constantly bombard you and find out what are the things that you like specifically, and how can we connect you with people that are selling those things. And then you will just be bombarded with these things. And it works. Because even though we consider ourselves very intelligent, which I'm sure many people here do, but the question is how strong is that intelligence of yours? Does it always work? It doesn't always work. It can sometimes become overwhelmed. So for that, we have to be careful. So therefore, Sanat Kumar says that one has to understand that that's how the senses work. And we have to be careful with our meditation. The meditation we practice. So therefore, it answers the question, what then is the good fortune? How can good fortune be had for the people of this world? And it says the following verse. Sastreshya neva sunishito menam chemasya sarayak vimisheshu hetuhu asanga atma vyatirikta atmani Vidaratir Brahmani Nirvana Chaya. It has been conclusively decided in the scriptures, after due consideration, that the ultimate goal for the welfare of human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life, and increased and steadfast attachment for the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental and beyond the modes of material nature. So good fortune means that we conquer ourselves. We take our mind and our consciousness and we get it under control. We pull it out from so many things that are unnecessary. Unnecessary stimulations, unnecessary things that we absorb ourselves in, that are all temporary and that bring no real benefit. It does not bring good health. It does not bring good mind. It does not bring good relationships. It does not bring good fortune. So many things. But we call anarthas. Artha means wealth, something valuable. But so much of our time and energy is spent on anarthas, which do not bring any value.
It does not bring health, happiness, or success. But the problem is that there's a certain taste there. So good fortune firstly means this, to take the mind and to withdraw it from anarthas. So many useless things that we waste our time on. And then what then? Then take that energy, take that time that you save and invest it to becoming attached to the Lord and the Lord's service, which is eternal, which is the one thing that you can invest in this world that will stay with you lifetime after lifetime. And if we're going to go back to God at the end of this life, we will pick up and continue in our next life. So to invest in the eternal. So those of you who are into investment, you know what is the secret with investment? There's a long timeline for your investments. If you can wait for 30 or 40 years, then you can make some good investment decisions that are not so high risk. Because we know in 30 or 40 years, the chances are very good that the stock market will go up. So same thing with investing in the eternal, is that we know that it's the most secure investment, because it is permanent, it will be lasting. So we see that this is good fortune, is to on the one hand, somehow pull back from the things that are anarthas, that do not bring any good for anyone, and the things, unfortunately, we have oftentimes have been a big part of our life. And on the other hand, become attached to the Supreme Lord, attached to the devotional service and in hearing the chanting about the Lord. We see that in that final verse and this section, we see that this process of purifying the self, of elevating the consciousness and lifting above anarthas, can be very difficult. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. Addictions, many things we have become addicted to. And we have to fight addictions regularly. We have to keep a careful eye on them. And that process can be very painful. And sometimes we get ourselves into trouble. I had a friend of mine who somehow he got involved in online gambling. And it started as just, something here and there. But next thing you know, it's taking more and more money, more and more time. And at some point you realize, I have a problem. I can't stop. So many things are like that. It starts small, and then it increases and it grows. And at some point now you have a problem. And you have to now get away from it. You don't want to stay on this track. But it's painful. It can be very difficult. So, but the trick thing is for those who are devotees, for those who are willing to take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, it is possible with great ease to overcome so many difficulties in this world. There is so much protection in taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, because there we will find a positive happiness, a positive taste that will fill up the heart. And you see, when the heart becomes filled up, that is our greatest protection. When there is happiness and fulfillment in the heart, that is when we become immune. There's so many things in this world that we waste our time and our energy. So we see in the final section that Sanat Kumar says, Yatpada pankata vilasha vilasa bhaktya karmashayam nirmitavudkaratayan visantava tatvanna riktamatayo yatayo kiruta sroto ganasamadanam vasudevam. The devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord can very easily overcome the heart-motive desires of fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, although trying to stop the way as a sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So Krishna Bhakti is an amazing thing, because it is a very positive process that will make part of one's life. And it will protect us from so much difficulty. And it is not unnatural. It is not about sitting in a cave. I recently read about the Buddhist Milarepa, who was very famous in the Middle Ages. And it said that he only ate grass soup. And that was his austerity. And then he later turned green, because he was only eating grass soup. And then you think, wow, is that what it means? Is that what spiritual life means? Is that what we have to do to become successful? And the answer is no. It doesn't have to be so extreme. By associating with spiritual-minded people, cultivating friendships with them, and coming to
together and hearing and chanting about Krishna, there is so much protection there. And by making that a regular part of our life, we will automatically be protected from so much anarthas and also slowly become cured from so many other anarthas, difficulties that might be there. And in this way, this is the easy, natural, and simple way to become successful. And as we said, what is that real good fortune? The real good fortune is to ultimately become saintly ourselves. It's really what the goal of life is. And we will see that in our life, as we occupy these various positions, all of you here are young people who will go into the world, and ultimately, majority of you will obtain positions of great responsibility in this world. This is what you're being prepared for. And it is good. It is good that you take responsibility for this world. But then you will be challenged. You will be challenged to see, can you be a well-wisher of the people who are dependent on you? Whether it is your family members, the people in your work, or in your society. And at that point, it is then those who are devoted. They are the ones that will more easily be able to step up to that challenge. To be people who can lead and take responsibility with integrity. And that is really the most important thing that the world needs right now. It's people with integrity who can take responsibility. And that strength comes from in your personal life to be very much connected with Krishna, Krishna consciousness. So, wonderful section of Bhagavatam. So, for those of you who have not read the Bhagavatam, it's not, even though it looks like a big book, this is a book like any others. You can read the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavatam is just as easy to read. I actually find it easier to read. Because the Bhagavad Gita is intense philosophy, whereas the Bhagavatam is a lot of stories, and it's almost, one could say, more elaborately explained. So amazing things to discover there for those who are interested in making it part of their life and reading it, even just a few pages a day. You will ultimately be amazed if you just take some time to read that Bhagavatam. And I think you will discover many things in there that are very valuable. So we can end here and see if there are any questions, any comments on anything that is said tonight. So if you have a question, you can ask a question. Or if you just want to share something that you find interesting, you can do that as well. Yes, Adosh.
Krishna, thank you so much for the time. My question is, you spoke about leadership. Given all of us are in professional fields, and even otherwise, what do you think should be a reasonable pushback against leadership when it does not align with your value system?
Pushing back against leadership is always something one has to handle with great caution. Each situation has to be looked at individually. So whenever we say you have to be very careful with the general situation, then things can go either way. If there's gross mismanagement, then one has to speak up. If people are breaking the law, doing things, then what can you do? But there is oftentimes even in leadership, there's a certain level of incompetence, or the leader is also not perfect. So if you're going to say, I will follow the leader, but then they must be perfect, well, then you're going to wait a long time, and that's going to be very difficult. So we see even in these prayers that we're attributing to, we see that at a previous section, he was speaking with his citizens. And then he prayed to the citizens to understand that we have to ultimately work together. And I pray that you can see that above me is the Supreme Lord. So ultimately, he's asking the citizens to be merciful unto me as well. So I think that when we are in a position where we're working with leadership, we have to understand that we also have to have the right attitude. So a cooperative mentality is very powerful. And that is a great skill also to have. So I think in the current age in which we live in, there's oftentimes being a revolutionary is very cool, isn't it? You know? And you can sometimes then also miss the point, is that it's not that leadership has to be perfect. But if there's a good relationship, mercy has to be going both ways. So cooperative attitude has to also be there. So when you speak about dealing with difficult leadership, I think it can go both ways. Sometimes it's very gross, very bad, then what can you do? There's no hope. But other times, if we're just struggling with a leader, we also have to invest in that relationship. Speak to the person, see if you can make yourself known, have a cooperative mentality. Sometimes that can also change the situation because we cannot wait. We are not perfect people. No one is perfect. So even if you're a leader, whatever leader, even good leaders can be imperfect. So we have to also learn how to deal with that. So always be careful. Always these extremes have to be balanced out. And for us, it takes, there's many situations that can be saved by a person who has a cooperative mentality can also ultimately change a leader. And if you would read about the stories of people who have become known as good leaders, you will see that oftentimes what happens is they learned very painful lessons throughout their career. And oftentimes it was people who they managed who were giving them that feedback, who were able to break through to them. And that's what changed their perception of leadership. So I think we have to remember we're always working together. And we're all audition souls, so two ways. But sometimes it can get very bad. And then, we have to sometimes stand up and really make something of it when there's gross misconduct. But it is a challenging thing. Thank you very much, Bill. Any other questions or comments? You have a question or a comment for today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
I want to share a line which I read it from the Science of Self-Realization first, and later I want to proceed with the question. The line which I loved the most was, happiness is within you. Don't go search for it. Your whole life is a mirage. If you reach a point, then you see another point to reach. Coming to the question, I've read Sanskara as an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Knows that all these spiritual existences, but he did not disclose them to his then Buddhist followers. Because he felt it was impossible for them to know about the spiritual world. Lord Buddha preached them the void is the ultimate goal. So how should his followers understand the spiritual variegatedness? I mean, we know that Lord Krishna is supreme of everyone. And here in the book, while I was trying to interpret, it was clearly mentioned that even Buddha is one of the, Lord Buddha is one of the Sri Krishna's form. How do you feel it in terms of, how can we say that? And as well as we've been raised in a way that Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Brahma, all these three musketeers are the ultimate. Here, we've been taught that Lord Krishna is ultimate. So I want to know these two.
Well, first thing is that the first time I heard of the Tribhuti being referred to as the three musketeers. I'll remember that one. The three transcendental musketeers. Well, two questions. Yes, we see that, again, when we say who is an avatar, who is not, we are simply following Shastra. It's not that, I say that, and you say something. We say, well, what does the Shastra say? Bhagavatam clearly refers to Buddha as also an incarnation. So we see that there are certain incarnations and avatars that come with a specific mission. They have a mission. They come to establish a mission. And we see that Lord Buddha came at a time where the Vedic sacrificial rituals were greatly misused for the sake of perpetuating animal slaughter on a large scale. And then Buddha came and took people temporarily away from Vedic sacrifices, and he again preached ahimsa and compassion. So as I said before, there's always these things that have to be balanced out. Sometimes you have to have punishment, but then you have to have mercy, and they have to be balancing out with one another. So God comes and he sometimes has to establish the balance. If things go too much in one way, he has to come and balance it out. So that's what Lord Buddha's mission was. He came with a specific mission,
to pull people, so he temporarily put people away, says, forget about the Vedas. Because people are just misusing it, and with that line of William Blake, he says, we both read the Bible day and night, but you reading black and I'm reading white. Meaning that scripture can also be misused for all kinds of purposes. People can argue on the basis of scripture to justify so many things. So Buddha said, forget about that for a minute. Let's just think about common sense, logic. Compassion is a very important principle. Without compassion, how can you have success in life? So we can establish that. I've seen that then Shankara came later, and then he brought people back to the Veda. But at that point, people had become so accustomed to voidism, the idea that there is nothing. That Shankara came and he said, there is something, but it is very similar to nothing. But it's something, it's spiritual, Nirguna Brahman. But then we see later, the avatars later came again, and then there's a slow revelation of transcendental knowledge. Because the difficulty with transcendental knowledge is that it's not so easily understood. The conditions have to be there. See, even Jesus, who Srila Prabhupada considers to be a powered incarnation of God himself. But then Jesus, what did he tell his disciples? He said, there is so much I can tell you. There's so much more I can tell you, but you cannot bear it. You're not ready to hear what I have to say. So he can only preach according to the words of his people. Just like if you're teaching mathematics to people who are in grade 1, then you can tell them, there's so much more I can teach you, but you're not ready yet. I can teach you calculus and so many other things, but what can I say? You have to be ready for that. There's also the audience, also determines how much will be revealed. So that's what we also see with these avatars. Something come with specific missions, specific time and place. And that's how it all is explained in scripture. And then your other question about Krishna, I would say that very important when we try to establish, as I said, these theological issues, like who is supreme, Krishna, Brahma, Shiva, which one of the musketeers are the main one? Who is the main musketeer? Then you have to turn to scripture. And I think that's the main thing. If you would actually read scripture and see what scripture says, that is how we can get clarity about these things. So, and there are amazing books of very learned people. Just like if I ask you, how does ChatGPT work? That's very difficult. You have to go to someone who has studied it and understands. Because I still don't understand. You just type it in and it comes out, so it's like magic. It's like a genie in a bottle. But somewhere, someone knows how that whole thing is put together. Someone who has understanding. So similarly, when it comes to theology, there are people who have deeply studied theology by looking at scripture, and they can quote and reference the scriptures in very intricate ways. And that's how we should ultimately, if we have doubts or questions of theological matter, we should turn to scripture, Shastra properly, see what is being said there. And that's how we can guide our understanding of these matters. I think that's important. I think sometimes we do not ultimately make use of the amazing reality of the scripture that we have. And then so many learned people who can take the time to study properly and write and reference and present to us scriptural understanding of these ultimately very important questions. So that is how we leave it at that, and that is how I think afterwards, if you want, I can give you some very good resources to read about that question. It is a fascinating question, how the three Murti come together, and in what way Krishna then is considered to be supreme. Some amazing theology and understanding behind that. A lot of it based on Srimad Bhagavatam, and which is all logically explained. Any other questions or comments for us tonight? We might all the day. Very, very different. Oh, there it is. So I thank you so much for being here with us tonight and for allowing me to say something. And it was wonderful to be here this month for this festival, to see so many fresh faces and people with such a promising future ahead of them. And I always wish, my prayer to you is that whenever we can increase our interest in our understanding
of the Bhagavatam, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and have these such an amazing wealth we can connect with, that can guide us throughout our lives. My prayer for each and every one of you, that we can get closer to this and see the amazing wealth that is in there, that is just waiting for us to be discovered. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Ki Lord Premanande.
And we give a huge round of applause. If you guys are getting ready to leave, just a reminder, this is the 1/3 of the festival. We have a lot of things to do. So we have dancing kirtan after this and then prasad. But before we switch to dancing kirtan, we have the Vice President of ISKCON New York City, Her Grace Aditya Mataji. She has some announcements to make. So I will request her.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. It's so wonderful to see you here each month. What an amazing, inspiring class that we just had from His Grace Hare Vilas Prabhu. So much inspiring information that we can apply in our lives. And of course, who can forget the very captivating drama that there was? I can barely recognize these boys from what they were in the drama. I was so captivated by the way that they portrayed the different roles and the wonderful story of Sudama. So I'm here to remind us that, of course, we're coming up to a series of wonderful festivals, which, of course, lead us up to none other than Sri Krishna Janmashtami, the most auspicious festival. Those of you who have been to the festival before here will know we get thousands and thousands of visitors that come to take part in the wonderful darshan and festivities that happen here, all the way up to about 1 a.m. in the morning, because we're one of the only temples that features a glorious midnight darshan, the time when Sri Krishna was actually born. So, I have here a volunteer sign-up form. Some of you wonderfully took part in the Ratha Yatra volunteer. You had so many glorious things. I ate some really good chat. I was so happy. Despite all the rain, it was a really wonderful event where we all connected so nicely. So again, we have many opportunities. We have different things like hospitality, chaperoning, gift shop, and so many more things that you can take part in. And it'd be wonderful for you to take part in that, whether you have experience or not. We also have, before that, on August the 9th, we're planning to have a volunteer orientation day where you are all warmly invited, those who sign up to be a volunteer, to come in the morning and then have an orientation and enjoy a wonderful lunch here with the devotees. One more announcement to make is this year, Sri Krishna Janmashtami falls on a Saturday. Then, the next day, there's going to be Srila Prabhupada's Divine Appearance Day. And as we follow the Tithis, so that day changes each year. This year, it actually falls on the same day as none other than Indian Independence Day. So, we will be taking part on the India Day Parade by performing a wonderful, ecstatic Ratha Yatra festival down in Madison Avenue from 12 p.m. So please, those of you who are already signed up to the announcements lists, please keep an eye on your devices. We'll be making further announcements of all these wonderful festivals in the next couple of days. I'll pass around this sheet for you to see. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
How many of you are here for the first time? Yes. Hare Krishna. Welcome all the first timers. It's always a privilege to have a new guest to our program. So I will take next 2 to 3 minutes and I will tell you who we are and what we do. Our group is called the Gita Life. We teach you how to live your life based on the Bhagavad Gita. We conduct programs wherever there are students or young professionals. How many of you are here from Newport, New Jersey? Yeah, we do a program there. How many of you are here from close to Journal Square, Indian Street? We do a program there as well. How many of you are here from Harrison? Harrison, yeah, we do a program there as well. And how many of you are here from Brooklyn? We do a program here as well. How many of you are here from Queens? We are soon beginning a program there in Brooklyn. So, we have a program in Harrison, Journal Square, Newport, in Brooklyn here in the temple, and Queens. We are beginning a program very soon. If you want to join any of our programs, you can join our WhatsApp group chat. We have a card on the front desk. You can get the card and join our WhatsApp group to get all the information. Next, if you have a group of friends and you live somewhere where we don't have a program yet, but you have a few friends who are interested, you can get in contact with us and we will start a separate cohort for you, where we will teach Bhagavad Gita just for you and your friends. 2 months back, we are switching gears. 2 months back, so we go to so many different locations, we prepare prasadam in the temple here and take it to different places and conduct those programs. To get there, we need a car. A few months back, 2-3 months back, our car broke down. We did not have a means to go there. So we used to carry all those prasadams in the train and go and do programs. Then we decided we will do a GoFundMe and do a fundraiser to get a car. We started the fundraiser, and because of all your generous donations, we were able to raise money and we got our Kamdhini, a Toyota Sienna, which has been serving us in these 2 months and for a considerable amount of time in the future, to do preaching, to spread the message of Bhagavad Gita around New York and New Jersey. So, thanks to all of you. And we have a big round of applause. It's a success for all of you. In temple, we have around 15 young professionals and students who live a Vedic lifestyle, go out to study and to work. We used to call it Bhakti Vedanta Swami Youth Services. And now we are expanding. How many of you are here from Jersey City again? Friends, can you please leave your contact number before you leave? Just see me before you leave. So good news for people in Jersey City. We are expanding to Jersey City. We are going to have a Bhakti Vedanta Swami Youth Services in Jersey City. Basically a temple atmosphere where students can live a Vedic lifestyle and work in the world out there. So we are also raising funds for that right now. You can help us in many ways, but I can give you 2 ideas on how you can help us. You can contact Gagan Prabhu. Can you raise your hand? He's Gagan Prabhu. You can contact him if you want to give some donations. Number 2, if you cannot give any donations, you can give us your time, because time is money. Time is money. You can give us your time. How? Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we do something called Govinda's Canteen. It will give you the taste of India. The most authentic and affordable South Indian snack bar around Brooklyn. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it is completely volunteer bound. If you can give any amount of time in a week, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, any amount of time to serve in the canteen and to help us grow that, we will be very, very grateful to you. If you want to volunteer in the canteen, you can go to the canteen down there and there is someone called Tarun Madhav Prabhu. What's his name? Tarun Madhav Prabhu. You can go to him and give his number and he's going to reach out to you for Govinda's hours. Right? So that's all from my side. And now it's time to prepare ourselves for the prasadam by doing dance and kirtan. So we can all stand up and dance our hearts out. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Namo Krishna Padaya.